Greetings to all Motorsport-Magazin.com friends and Formula One fans. The Las Vegas Grand Prix from this historic year will be recorded in history. It's not just because George Russell emerged victorious and we witnessed an incredible race, it's also because of Max Verstappen's performance that this race will go down in history. He had the first match point and he converted it. Finishing 5th was enough to clinch his 4th title ahead of schedule. He managed to further extend his lead, which he could have easily lost. Instead, he raised his score from 60 to 63 points, and mathematically, it is no longer feasible to catch up in the last 2 races. Lando Norris closely followed Verstappen's leading performance, but despite his fastest lap, it couldn't salvage his chances. So the deal is done, Max Verstappen has succeeded, and thus, respect is due. Before we take a closer look at the race, we want to look at Max Verstappen's performance. Although he couldn't climb onto the podium, he participated in the podium interviews. He was also chauffeured there in a limousine. This seems rather peculiar, I believe. The top 3 individuals were seated in a vehicle, while he accompanied his race engineer Giampiero Lambiase in a Rolls-Royce, enjoying themselves with this particular automobile. He seemed to not know it well. It was a bit strange, but I think the previous Las Vegas Grand Prix happened to be really peculiar, with a scene that was excessively extravagant. However, this year they maintained a good balance and we were fortunate enough to witness another thrilling race. This Las Vegas Grand Prix has the potential to thrive. It's possible that I found greater enjoyment in it due to my absence, not experiencing the cold or enduring long, grueling work hours. Nevertheless, I'm eager to hear your thoughts on how you liked it, but I think there was little to complain about in terms of sports. Yes, Max Verstappen has been crowned Formula One World Champion for the 4th time in a row, and this 4th World Championship title, this puts him in the same league as Sebastian Vettel, Alain Prost, and a few others, precisely 3, who have more. Juan Manuel Fangio has 5 titles, and then there's Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher with 7. But this shows the level at which Max Verstappen operates truly unique, especially after the Year of the Year, which was a record-breaking season. Although he won almost everything, Max Verstappen had to really fight this year, which made the title special for him, and he mentioned this in the press conference. There is traditionally a world champion press conference, which is always a bit nicer than the top 3 press conferences, because it's really just the world champion sitting there, so you can have a nice chat and it becomes a bit deeper there. When observing his world champion press conferences, starting with the one in Abu Dhabi for his first Year of the Year and continuing to his 4th world champion press conference, it becomes evident you can observe his noticeable maturation as he has become significantly more profound. He believes that during the Year of the Year, the acknowledgement of this record was incomplete and insufficient, because the general consensus was that it was simply a dominant car, end of story. However, he claims that the car didn't always enjoy such supremacy, making winning this title even more satisfying. Verstappen himself claims that for over 70% of the season he didn't have the best car, yet he still extended his lead in the championship. If we examine the World Cup in Miami more closely, we can see that it was quite a dramatic change in circumstances. Before Miami, Verstappen had a 52-point advantage. Now, just before the season ends, it's 63 points, and for most of the time since Miami, the Red Bull wasn't the best car. Thus, it must be acknowledged without envy what Max Verstappen has accomplished this season. And the competition did indeed do the same, bowing down to Verstappen, including the former champion Fernando Alonso. Says he has taken the car where it doesn't really belong. Brazil was the best example of this, and even Fernando Alonso, even the routine one, says you can always learn things from drivers like him, so that's very, very high praise indeed. There was also significant praise from his biggest title rival, Lando Norris. They are friends, but this season they weren't so friendly. Lando Norris says that when Max had the fastest car, he dominated, and even when he didn't have the fastest car, he was still right behind us. He almost won, or actually did win. He made almost no mistakes and got everything out of the car every single time. So, Lando Norris has shown himself to be a gracious loser, which is worth noting. Max Verstappen is the best driver in the world, probably one of the best Formula One has ever had. So, a direct quote from Lando Norris, and that's why he views his own performance in a different light, drawing a positive conclusion, even if one could say McLaren may have squandered it. He says, no, we are racing against Max Verstappen, and we can actually be proud that we are the ones who could at least challenge Max Verstappen. And I mentioned it, these World Championship press conferences are a bit more profound, and the question came up about how it was at the season start. The Horner affair wasn't directly addressed, but there was talk of a difficult time and there were rumors about a switch to Mercedes. Verstappen has reflected on this, and he said it's completely normal to think about one's life, asking oneself if they want to continue, how long they want to do it, where they want to do it, and how they want to do it. He says these are completely normal thoughts, so he didn't deny that the Mercedes switch was on the table. But on the other hand, he hasn't clearly confirmed it, but he has said that it does gnaw at his mind a bit, and he's considering what he wants to do. But the most important thing for him is that once he's in the car, he's totally relaxed, not swayed by outside talk, saying that everything said outside and any thoughts that cross his mind don't matter. The thoughts he has in the car are irrelevant to him, and he has clarified that he is someone who doesn't make drastic decisions and is very loyal, and he has reverted. When Red Bull promoted him from Formula 3 straight to Formula 1, as they had already promoted him in Formula 3, and of course it's always easy to say goodbye at difficult times, but for him the key is that he still enjoys it, and as long as he's having fun, everything is all right. So that's Max Verstappen, both the old and new world champion. Yes, we discussed the difficult times. In the print magazine, we not only mentioned this challenging period at Red Bull, but really go into detail, examining the last 2 years more closely. It was a time when everything was going great, but after Dietrich Mateschitz's death, things started to brew at Red Bull. Visit motorsportmagazine.com to subscribe for edition 99, but you can also pre-order edition 100, so join in before it reaches 3 digits. Now, let's go back to the Las Vegas Grand Prix and the winner, George Russell. That was an absolutely dominant performance from him. You don't see that at all. Whenever he won in Formula 1, he had to fight hard for it, or was there at the very end when there was something to take, like in Austria this year. Now he drove off from pole position. At the very beginning, it might have been a bit tricky. He had to briefly worry against Charles Leclerc, but then it was quickly settled, and he dominated from the front. Hardly anyone could have predicted it happening. Yes, Mercedes performed well throughout the weekend, but in race trim, you can look at our tips on Instagram, where my colleague Niedermeyer and I provide top 5 forecasts. Perhaps it might be wiser to avoid viewing it at this moment. I would say our opinion on where we saw Mercedes in this prediction was somewhat aligned with how Mercedes might have viewed itself and many others in the field, including Ferrari. Russell reluctantly acknowledged his desire to operate an antiquated engine during the upcoming weekend, as he held scant hope for achieving success. Then he planned to keep the good engine for Qatar, where he expected a bit more based on the track characteristics than in Las Vegas. Fortunately, Russell ignored his personal belief and selected the correct engine, ensuring sound decision-making. It's an absolute power track, and not only for that reason, but he dominated the race. Truly an absolutely sensational performance from him. Lewis Hamilton demonstrated the true speed of the Silver Arrow in race configuration. Starting from the 10th position, he made a strong progression to secure second place. He understood he had the win locked in on Friday since he lost the qualifying session. Despite putting on an impressive performance in the race, it seemed that Russell could have ramped up the pressure a bit more, as it proved insufficient for achieving greater success. He reduced the gap to as little as 5 seconds at one point, having been much further behind earlier. He might have been the faster one, but Russell didn't really give it his all. Toto Wolff asserted they had the capability to exert extra pressure if necessary, and, under those circumstances, did not face the same grading challenges as other teams did. The key query remains, why? Mercedes needs to understand this to continually improve the car. Certainly the cold was a significant point of conversation. As we mentioned before, it was slightly milder today, but still considerably chilly for optimal Formula 1 conditions. This is certainly a point that brings together Mercedes' victories this season. It was cold in Silverstone, cold in Spa, they should have won in Montreal, it was cold there as well, and now of course in Las Vegas. This is indeed a small trend that can be recognized. Now the question is, how can this be put into action? Furthermore, Ferrari offered their helpful assistance on the opposite end. The Scuderia had an extensive array of plans in store for the city of Las Vegas. The track characteristics were meant to be a perfect fit for the SF20. But they encountered difficulties getting the tires into the temperature window during qualifying. But we pointed out the Ferrari was actually favored to win the race. And it actually looked that way. Charles Leclerc had a fantastic start, moving from 4th to 2nd, but then fell back from 2nd to 3rd. But it looked like Leclerc could really pressure Russell, though not for very long. Then his medium tires immediately fell off. Severe graining, something we truly didn't expect from Ferrari, and Ferrari didn't expect it either. Sainz managed to overtake Leclerc once more, with Leclerc claiming he allowed him to pass. So he sort of let him by and sort of got past because the performance completely fell off. At this stage, Leclerc was extremely eager to pit, meaning that the race had essentially ended for Ferrari. We endured a significant time loss during the initial stint on the medium tyre. Then the second stint on the hard tyres went much better. Sainz was ahead of Leclerc again. We need to keep reminding ourselves of this. It's quite challenging to describe all of this in detail. And to clarify why there was significant stress at Ferrari, Leclerc more or less willingly let Sainz pass at the end of the first stint. Then Sainz was back in front. Then they changed to the hard tyres. Sainz was leading the race ahead of Leclerc, but towards the end of the second stint on the hard tyres, he encountered some difficulties. It was clear that he was facing a lot of challenges. Then the events started to unfold quickly. Leclerc came charging back from behind. Sainz really wanted to pit. The team said, box me, I have to change tyres, I'm losing too much time. Then the team thought about it and said, okay, should we let Leclerc pass now? Should we bring Sainz into the pits now? And for some reason things didn't quite go as planned. We swapped positions once more with Leclerc overtaking Sainz. Soon after we received the message to make our way to the pits. Then Sainz was already on his way to the pits. Then it was stay out. Then he went out again, losing a lot of time in the process. Then he came in a lap later. Yes, he was definitely in the pits earlier than Leclerc. He entered the pits after Leclerc, but was able to leave with tyres that were still warm and remained relatively close to the driver from Monaco. Then Ferrari said, what do we do now? Leclerc is in front, Sainz is out. Let's lose the position for now. Sainz won't attack Leclerc. That was the information given to Leclerc, but it was only passed on to Sainz afterwards, while he was already in the midst of an attack. And thus, a misunderstanding occurred. Leclerc felt disregarded, thinking, okay, the other was told not to attack me. Sainz received instructions to refrain from attacking right at the very moment when he was already engaging in an attack. Leclerc was somewhat displeased, saying, no, maybe you should try Spanish with that colleague. And he was really furious. The race ended with Sainz in front of Leclerc. After crossing the line, Leclerc was very upset. He was cursing a lot, so it is preferable not to replicate the exact quotes. We are not in an FIA press conference, and there is no need to worry about any penalties. However, to put it mildly, I will translate it as down once more. I'm too kind, and every time I'm nice, then it's safe to say that it has a lasting effect on me, to say the least. He eventually understood, oh, I still have the radio on. It was very embarrassing for him when he went off on his race engineer and was a bit rude on the radio. This naturally caused quite a stir afterward, as everyone wanted to know what had happened. However, Leclerc at least presented himself as a gentleman in the interviews. Well, he's not the type of guy to really go for it. He's very loyal to his team and tends to take the team in his stride and protection, and then he has apologized a little and then only hinted lightly at why he was dissatisfied. He never anticipated that Sainz would overtake him, and it then revolved around agreements, internal team dynamics and so forth. I think looking back he will realize that he simply let the team down a little. He miscommunicated and didn't handle everything correctly at the pit wall, which led to this situation. It's certainly a bit challenging, especially since Leclerc remains. You want him happy in the team, but on the other side, Carlos Sainz is leaving the team. He really has nothing left to lose, but there's still the Constructors' Championship at stake, so you just want to achieve the best team result. For that, you need a Sainz who gives it his all. On the other hand, Leclerc should also be happy in this team. It's a very tricky situation. Mercedes has likely been given second place. Despite the challenges faced during the initial stint, Ferrari could have potentially been able to maintain their lead over Lewis Hamilton, creating the ideal race scenario for the team. That is the reason why Ferrari feels a sense of bitterness. They had higher hopes, however. It provides some solace that they crossed the finish line ahead of both McLarens as well as one Red Bull car. With 2 races to go in Qatar, McLaren-friendly track is expected to be the triumph for Scuderia, but they find themselves trailing by 24 points, contrary to expectations. Ferrari seems to have a tougher time. That's why Ferrari isn't the clear favorite for the Constructors' Championship title, but they still have some outsider chances. This race wasn't too terrible for the championship either. The championship is quite exciting behind the scenes. Alpine got big points with a lucky break in Brazil, finishing second and third. They gained many spots. Now it was again about a position back, thanks to Nico Hülkenberg. He really drove a great race, finishing in 8th place, best of the rest. He earned exactly 1 more point for Haas than Alpine has in the Constructors' Championship, so Haas is back in 6th place with 50 points. Alpine is 7th with 49 points. The Racing Bulls behind them have 46. They still managed to score 2 points with Yuki Tsunoda. Yet, Alpine played a major role in Haas reclaiming the lead with a significant contribution. Pierre Gasly's impressive 3rd place in qualifying was noteworthy. He then fell back a bit, which was expected, but then it was a bitter blow for him. engine failure. So that was it for him. Esteban Ocon's moment in the pit lane, which occurred on lap 30, was captured on camera and broadcasted on the world feed. It is possible that you have seen this replay while watching the race. And somehow, there was no mechanic present who wanted to perform the pit stop. We examined the situation more closely. This incident actually happened on lap 11. Esteban Ocon was directly behind Nico Hülkenberg. Then they told him to come into the pits to do the exact opposite of Hülkenberg. That means if Hülkenberg had come in, Ocon should not have come in. Since Hülkenberg did not come in, Ocon did. He then turned into the pit lane. He was unable to locate his mechanics because they were absent and unprepared. Consequently, he proceeded to drive through the pit lane and was then instructed to come in for a tyre replacement on the following lap. A really bitter situation, effectively a drive-through penalty, one that was completely unnecessary. This ended any chance he had for points. It was even more disappointing as he was directly behind Nico Hülkenberg at that particular time. It had the potential to be a head-to-head competition between him and Hülkenberg on equal terms, and correspondingly, it was truly decisive for the Constructors' Championship. However, don't forget Nico Hülkenberg, who delivered an impressive performance in the race. He managed to overtake Yuki Tsunoda on the track, executed a remarkable first stint, made an outstanding start, and strategically extended his time on the track. He took the tyre advantage at the end, so you have to take a bow to Nico Hülkenberg. We also have to bow down to you, our loyal viewers. But maybe you watch these videos regularly but haven't subscribed to the channel yet. I frequently come across this situation where I watch YouTube videos and suddenly realize that I haven't actually subscribed to the channel yet. It's a crucial step that I must take right now. We would be very happy, and we are just about to achieve our goals. Maybe we can even achieve them before the current season concludes. And for those of you who regularly watch, you know what happens next. Our Ask AVD. We will summarize the race with our expert, Christian Danner, in the AVD Motorsport-Magazin. You can participate actively, you can ask our expert questions, just place everything under the hashtag AskAVD.